Do you know my poetry? What's up, everybody? Welcome to PCP Movie Night here on Pop Culture Philosophers. I am your host, Rockin, Robbie Billups. I got a great panel tonight to talk about a fantastic movie directed and written by Jim Jarmusch from 1995, starring Johnny Depp, and a plethora of fantastic appearances by people like Crispin Glover, Gary Farmer, Lance Hendrickson, John Hurt, Robert Mitchum, Iggy fucking Pop's in this movie. Y'all, we're talking about Dead Man tonight, and it is that time of the year, crew's choice. And speaking of the PCP crew, excitable we are, this was Brooks's pick. So let's welcome everybody. Brooks into the house. What's up, my man?
What's up, stupid white man?
Yeah, we are stupid white men. How are you doing, man?
Stupid white man.
Bruh, good pick on Dead Man. Not ever on my radar. Bruh, this is a good one.
Yeah, like I thought this would be like an interesting movie just to like, see what people thought of it. Because I remember I liked it a lot. And on the rewatch, I still like it a lot. But I was interested to see what everybody would think of this movie, actually.
Yeah, I would hope you like this movie a lot since you picked it for Crew's Choice, right? It'd be one thing to be like, Crew's Choice, I fucking go on Geely.
Because watch I want to see Revelations again.
Speaking of Geely, his favorite movie with Ben Affleck is Geely. It's Jelani. What's up, my man?
Who knew, man? Who knew? I'd love that sweet, sweet romance between J-Lo and Affleck. Who knew? Yeah, man. Yeah, Brooks. Yeah, you picked the winner, man. This is a crazy one. So I'm glad to be here, and I love to talk about this one.
Hell yeah, me too. You mentioned crazy. Speaking of crazy, we got the Brianiac in the house. What's up, my man?
Hey.
Nice perspective on that room, bro. That's nice.
You like that? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, it's the best I can do.
So it's good.
Yeah, excited to talk about this.
Hell yeah. Also excited to be here and talk about it, I'm sure, is Joe Corallo. What's up, my man?
Not too much. Just here to talk about a particular movie tonight. I was just wondering, though, is she still Jenny from the Block? Did we ever get confirmation on that after Geely?
I was fooled by the rocks that she's got, though. She's got like the Infinity Gauntlet. She's got the Infinity Gauntlet of engagement rings, so I guess so. Let's see.
We appreciate everybody being here. Entropy and Comics, GTK Comics. We got Perry in the house. What's up, Perry? Have you watched Dead Man? I want to see your reaction. It's good. What's up, Eric? And what's up, Two Gun Pedro? Pop, pop, boom. Let's get into this fucking film. Like I said, 1995, Jim Jarmusch. And so when Brooks recommended this, I looked it up, and Brooks let me borrow his DVD. So I did watch this old school on DVD, y'all. And I think it added to it, actually, to be honest, because it had this grit to it.
Yeah, the nature of the film kind of makes it
It does. This film made me feel like I was on drugs for a second, and I was on some light drugs maybe. But anyway, I loved this film. I thought it was great, but I looked into it, and I was like, who is this Jim guy? And I was like, oh, he did Coffee and Cigarettes. He did Sling Blade. I never made the connection there was this guy. I always heard of his name, right? Sure. But I watched a lot of interviews. with him about this movie and just about film in general over the last weekend. And I'm going to dive deep into this dude and his work. And I'll also say this, I got to give him mad props, because if you didn't think that Wolverine hair was an actual fucking thing, look at this dude. Okay. And he's at least looked like he's at least looked like this since like the 90s. So I was super impressed with that. So Brooks, this was your pick for Crew's Choice. Obviously something you really liked, wanted to talk about. Overall, what's your experience? What do you think about the film?
Well, it's strange how I kind of came into this movie. Is like I was going to Calhoun Community College, and I was taking a literature course, English Lit, and we were covering like an era of poetry that William Blake was in. And so the teacher of the course like showed us this movie to kind of like, give us, well, just because it had, all the Blake stuff in it, pretty much. And like I fell in love with William Blake's poetry from that course. And like this movie is always like, that's probably the thing about it that I love the most, is just how I actually recognize all these little William Blake references in this movie, and it makes me feel smart. Yeah, it's just complete habits. And I remember one day I was driving home. I was either driving home from college, because I remember you worked at Movie Stop at the time.
Hell
Robbie
yeah,
did.
man. Movie stop, but it did stop. Movie stop stopped.
Yeah, it did stop.
There are no more.
Not it wasn't your fault, because you'd already left by then.
Yeah, fuck that place, man.
But yeah, like I found this movie on the shelves at his Movie Stop, and I picked it up and bought it. And like I hadn't seen it in a long time. I hadn't.
That very
rewatched it.
copy right there, Brooks.
That's the one.
That pristine, clear DVD copy.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, it was like destiny that I was going to own this movie.
And it's brought us.
Yeah.
Movie, I think.
I forgot who's Ghost Dog too. Yeah, I love that movie. We gotta do that.
Yeah, nobody's actually in that movie.
Yeah,
Makes a little cameo appearance. So you like the film, Brooks, is what you're saying?
I do.
All right, Jelani, this was your first time, as well as me. So I want to know, what did you think about this? And I know Brooks kept saying, I cannot wait to see what Jelani thinks about this movie. So what do you think?
All right. Well, first of all, Brooks, I don't hate it. Not at all. It's very. I was surprised at first, because the train ride, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like,
That's a weird startup, dude.
Why are you starting this movie this way? Why does he?
I think I have a reason. I think I know why.
Yeah, and he keeps
I'll get
closing
to
his
that
eyes, and different people keep showing up and all this weird stuff. But like, I was like, what the hell is this? But like, as you progress through this movie, it's like just this guy that has no business being where he is, and how he reacts to it. But I think it's something larger than that. But because it's so surreal, it's such a surreal film on so many different levels. You can piece so many things together and be like, is this really happening? Is this the real life, or is this fantasy? You can't tell. And it's such a good, like a weird Western on top of like all the crazy cameos you get, all of the unexpected, like really crazy things that happen in this movie. I was just impressed with everything. Like the music's decent. Is shot well, shot for shot. It's gorgeous. I mean, I know we're talking about all this stuff later, but man, I was really impressed. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I'm totally pro Johnny Depp. So even watching this movie now, I'm like, yeah.
Why we got to make it political, man? Let's calm down,
It's
man.
totally political. For that homie.
Like I know, I picked this movie before all that happened.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. But it's
Not
so
my
cool, man. Yeah.
PCP is not picking a side as an organization. We're just going to say.
Johnny Depp. I am Johnny Depp. You come at me, son. Come at me all day. But anyhow,
I will say I will say I own more Johnny Depp movies than I do Amber Heard movies. I'll say that. I'll just say that. I'll say that. I don't think I own a one, because I don't even own Aquaman. Oddly enough.
And you love Aquaman.
What?
Which is odd.
Yeah,
I don't like that movie very much.
It's not
either.
that I
He
don't want people to misunderstand this. I don't love the movie Aquaman. I like it, but I love the character of Aquaman. Okay, that's like I just
Ooh, my man.
want to make. All right. Anyway, moving on. Brian, You asked to be on this one when you saw the list because you obviously have a history with it. What is that history, and what do you think about it overall in the revisit?
Well, yeah, I want to thank you, Brooks, for suggesting this one because, when I saw the list, I actually forgot that I forgot about this movie entirely. I had seen it, back in the day, and probably the late '90s would have been around where I caught it, but. Because when I got the list, I was like looking at the list and I was like, I haven't even heard of some of these, and I put it in IMDb and I went, oh, I do remember this. Yeah, this movie's fabulous. So definitely quickly asked to be on this one. To me, this movie is just like the right kind of weird. I mean, it hits all those things. I mean, it looks great. The music's great, but it's jarring. At the same time. I mean, it's like you're constantly just being pulled along in this just kind of weird landscape that oftentimes doesn't make sense with some of the things, with the landscape and everything, but like just all the people in it, I don't know. I'm a big Butthole Surfers fan, and seeing Gibby Haynes in a movie was pretty dang cool. I mean, he's one of my favorite musicians ever. So it was just,
is that the dude who's like talking all the fucking time? That's there with Lance Hendrickson and the other dude.
He has no speaking parts. He's the one that's when he first shows up into the town, he's in the alley with the gun and
getting the blowjob.
Getting a blowjob, and
he's
then
the blowjob.
Oh, blowjob guy.
Why didn't you lead with that? We would have known what you were talking. There's only one blowjob in this movie, man.
Yeah.
We remember.
There is, okay. And it was so good he couldn't talk during it. So yeah, it was good.
Those are the best kind.
They are.
Yes, they are.
They are. They should be the only kind. But
anyway,
yes.
That's my concise thoughts.
You just want to end it on the blowjob bit? Okay, that's fine. Joe, obviously you saw the list. You wanted to be on here. What's your history with this movie? What'd you think about it, man?
I did. My history is I only found out about this movie last year, and similar to you, Robbie, I was also like, "What the hell?" Like I was told about this by a friend of mine, Daniel Stalter, who's in. Sort of up and coming indie comics guy, and mentioned that like one of the last times I hung out with him, and I'm like, all right. And I looked it up, and I saw the cast, and I saw like what the movie's about, and I'm like, how the hell have I never heard of this movie?
Right.
I was like blown, like I was blown away. I felt like betrayed by the people in my life. I'm like, I worked at a video store. I have all these. I went to college. I mean, you would think like these things would have come up. Nothing. And then I watched it, shortly after my friend Daniel recommended it to me, and I was like, like at first when you hear about something like this that you should have known, 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's because it's not very good or it was good, and then like it falls apart the third act or something about it fails.
Yeah.
That was not the case at all here. So then like I had even more mixed feelings where I'm like, I'm so happy I've now discovered this, but like now I feel even more betrayed because this was actually a really good movie that like no one mentioned. And I it's, yeah. Ugh.
It's kind of the surreal nature of the movie. Like a lot of people just wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people did.
Well,
I guess.
I mean,
clearly,
I love William Blake too, but I don't know too many people that talk about William Blake just randomly, right? I mean, it's heavily influenced, by that.
So I'm looking at the information here. It cost $9 million. It made $1 million at the box office. So there's one reason why we never heard of it. But we should have heard about it, right? Especially because me and Jelani, we worked at a goddamn video store. Like
I
we
never
were like,
heard of this movie.
Like I remember seeing it as soon as I looked it up. I was like, oh, I remember seeing this cover. Right. Yeah. But like, I never
interested.
I never knew what it was. Right.
Yeah.
It came out in 95 at Cannes in May, but it actually released widely on my birthday in 1996. So another stab in the heart. Like it was released on my birthday. I didn't know.
I was a freshman. Damn.
Yeah. I wouldn't have appreciated this movie back then. But in my 20s, I think I would have. In fact, in my 20s, I would have been like, this is the best fucking revisionist neo-Western ever. It gets described as a psychedelic Western by Jim himself. He said in an interview, he's like, it's kind of got like this hallucinatory, psychedelic almost experience by the time you're at the end of it. I agree with that. This movie to me was fucking mesmerizing. I was obsessed with it. I had just gotten off of a week of COVID, right? And I'm watching this film, thinking about death and what this film represents and the journey that's taken and how surreal it is, how psychedelic it is. And like, it's not psychedelic. Like, it's not like U2's going to show up in the Love Mobile and take you away and across the universe or some shit. But like, it's truly otherworldly, extrasensory almost. This is like a film that peers to the soul. And I was incredibly impressed with this. Now, of course, brought to life by an amazing cast. We got Johnny Depp, we got Gary Farmer, but so many small bits done by amazing performers. Everybody who has screen time in this movie, even the butthole surfer blowjob guy that Brian likes so much, has like makes their impression on this film. So Brooks, it's your movie. We're this is volleyball, man. We're setting you up. We're giving you the best character. Okay. So we hope you run with it, but what do you want to mention as your favorite character / performance?
Well, nobody's the best character.
Fuck yeah, man.
Nobody, totally,
Quite
hands
possibly.
down. Like, because the way I see this film or the way I interpret it is that like, William Blake is dead from the beginning of this movie, and like the whole movie is like his journey through the underworld, you know, to his final destination, and like nobody is like his guide in a way. Like he kind of like the way I kind of thought of him is like he was the crow from the movie The Crow, if it could speak. He's like, you know, he sends him like, you know, you've been brought back to kill white men. Like, you know, he sets him on a path because William Blake doesn't have any reason he doesn't have a reason to seek vengeance, anything like that. You know, he's just kind of stumbling along in a way, and nobody's just kind of like there to, you know, to basically prop him up and like point him like, this is where you need to go, William Blake. Or I see
Gary
you collecting
Farmer,
more
by
of
the
the
way.
white men's medal, William Blake.
Yeah, Gary Farmer, by the way, is the actor,
Dude.
Canadian musician, actually a Native American. What a fucking fantastic role. He is automatically the best character in the
He is
film.
the best character.
He grabs
Like,
you,
I
man.
think like his reverence for William Blake like kind of reminds me of myself too. Like when dude like tells him his name, he's like William Blake, he's like, he has this over like, it's like, holy shit, you really are a dead man. Yeah, like
Is this a white man's trick? Is this real? He's
Yeah.
like, is this real? Is it worth it? What's going on? He's doing all the bits. What a great character, and humorous too, and brings
Yeah.
charm and humor
when
into this.
he finds that chick in the woods and they're like banging, and then all of a sudden she like just just bitches him out
Cuss
and
him out, yeah.
runs off.
I have to go speak to her real quick. Hold on, bro. Hell yeah, man. A fantastic performance. And I was watching an interview with Jim Jarmusch, and he says that Gary Farmer, when he hired him to do the film, he wanted him to do the film. And he calls him and he goes, hey, I want to send you the script. And he goes, I don't read scripts. Why don't you just come up here and tell me the story? And he lived like 5 miles or 5 hours outside of Toronto in the fucking wilderness off the grid. And Jim had to like fly there and then rent a car and drive to this fucking off the grid fucking place where he was and tell him the story. And he stayed the night with him because it was too dark to go back. And like, that's what he did to get the dude in the role. And he said that he always felt bad that he kind of ends the character's journey at the end of the film. Right. But it's also tied into what Brooks was saying. And we'll get into all that stuff later. We're going to dive into this, man. I'm excited. But he was saying that like, so he brought him back in Ghost Dog, and he says every time he sees him now, Gary goes, so when am I going to be in your next movie? Because I wasn't in your last one. And he's like hurt that he's not
in agreement. I was going to be in all your movies.
Exactly.
Put up your Bruce Campbell.
Exactly. It's a hell of a role, man. And definitely one of the highlights of the entire film. What about you, Jelani? What's another performance you want to highlight?
All right. Well, I love Nobody. Like, he's my favorite character in the movie. Yeah. But I'll go to my next favorite since Brooks took the good one. It's the Conway Twill, the guy that talks too much. The one that's Yeah, I absolutely love him.
Jesus, Cole, he's only a boy.
Oh my god, that dude is fucking.
He's
That was
awesome.
gonna be my pick, bro. Because that whole bit where he's like, "When don't you at least be thankful that it goes dark and like gradually and just not all of a
And
sudden?"
not all at once.
And apparently that was ad libbed.
Yeah,
like just came
I
out
believe
with.
it. And it's so weird, like all his conversations, and like he's telling him about Lance Hendrickson's character, like how he may have or may not have fucked him, and then he ate him, and then I'm like, what? it's just something weird. It's just out of the blue. Why would you like explain that? And then,
It's so crazy because
and
at
then
first
when
you
it
think
happens,
at first you think he's just doing a bit, and
No.
then it happened.
it happens, and it's so weird. And he's like, I love how like he dies off camera, like he's trying to figure out like, well, yeah, I was born out here, and I did this and this and this. You're like, well, where are you born? What's your lineage? You know, are you German or are you Austrian? Pop! It's just over, and I'm like, wow. Okay.
It's a good
But-
bit that's well earned because you
Yeah.
get his incessant rambling
Yeah.
throughout the entire movie.
The
You
whole movie.
you know that's gonna
Like,
get on Cole's.
every time you
pit.
see Cole, like he's just like, it's like he's just putting up with it. He's just
Yeah.
waiting for his moment.
Like, I want to kill him. I'm gonna kill him. I can't wait to kill him. I got it. You know,
Wait until Fuzlo, and I'll be honest, it took a moment until I realized, oh, he's eating his fucking arm. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it at
and
first.
that was him. Yeah,
I thought he was eating a rabbit or some shit,
he
man. I
was
didn't
straight
fucking know.
eating things. I was like, yeah,
Dude, that was obviously a human hand. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of rabbit has like a human hand?
I didn't
bone?
realize it at first. Brooks is what I'm trying to fucking say, and then I realized anyway. Whatever.
It's
You
such
know
a,
more about bones, dude.
I didn't think I was goddamn watching Pieces, you know.
Yeah.
But you know,
my
it
third, but my third favorite character is the guy getting the blowjob. But yeah,
is. We got to bring it back to the blowjob, which means we're bringing it back to blowjob Brianiac. How are you doing?
Man, that's the name I've always wanted.
Yeah. That would have been a badass fucking name in high school, or maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
BJB.
from Butthole Surfers.
I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Yeah, I did have Gibby as my backup, and I figured nobody would already be taken, because yeah, he was phenomenal. There's so many, really, in this. Like, you know, I mean, Billy Bob Thornton was, you know, pretty good. Iggy,
You
that
just
whole-
shot me. It burns
Scene with those
something
three.
fierce or some shit like that.
Yeah. Well, and that other guy is Jared Harris.
I know.
in that trio, and
Oh,
How
yeah,
random!
that is
How
Jerry
random
Harris.
that he's in that fucking movie.
yeah.
and I thought that was really cool too.
And
but,
Iggy Pop was cracking me the fuck up, man.
Yeah,
I was like, "Is this a
Sally.
Kids in the Hall sketch? What is this, man?"
They're reading from the good book.
yeah, I mean,
That whole thing with those three campers, that was just like, I was like, what?
Why are you?
oh
At
yeah,
least the
so
first time we
weird.
watched it was.
yeah, definitely, yeah. But I'm gonna go with the Train Foreman by Crispin Glover, because I mean, he tells you what's gonna happen. You
He's
know,
like the Friday the 13th, you're all gonna die guy, kind
Yeah.
of.
Mhm. Wow.
but yeah, like, you know, he tells him, you know, he's going to the town, he's going to die. And also, I just love the way he talks. I mean, that,
Now, I'd like 2 eggs over hard.
You know, that BJB bit makes that a whole other fucking perspective on that whole bit.
it does.
That's an
It
overall
does.
TJP. I'm sorry, it never gets old. Never gets old.
This is my favorite PCP movie night now, just so everybody knows.
Ah, yeah, that should be a hit. Runaway hit. But yeah, you know, and then, you know, when he delivers a line about, you know, shooting buffalo, you know, I don't know. I like that. I've always liked Crispin Glover too, though. So, but yeah, it's really hard to pick because everybody delivers so well in all of their roles. I mean, you know, Alfred Molina. I mean, I don't know, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Robert
could just
Mitchum.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Fucking
right?
Robert
Yeah.
Mitchum, everybody's in this fucking movie. It's so weird
Oh, yeah.
and random, right? I fucking love it. And
Like, I don't remember all these big names being in it the first time I watched. I remember like being a few, but maybe I just hadn't like gotten as familiar with a lot of the actors at that point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this time I was like, what? He's in there? He's in there? What?
yeah. It's like a goddamn one of those 70s comedies, fucking like Cannonball Run shit or something
Yeah.
with just a bunch of celebrities or some like silent movie, you know, which
Yeah.
we'll be talking about on the Mel Brooks podcast. finally on Friday night for our Patreon viewers over at patreon.com/PCP. What about you, Joe? What is a character you want to highlight there?
Yeah, God, there are so many. I was thinking probably Alfred Molina, that in the missionary post there, just that whole bit. It's only like barely 5
Tobacco
minutes.
cans are empty.
Yeah,
That's
for
super.
my
It's a super
personal
tense
stash.
bit. It's a super
Yeah.
tense bit. It reminds me of that No Country for Old Men bit where he's like at the fucking convenience store, right?
Yeah.
But the whole bit, and he's just like, he's based, for the most part, he's pretty stationary, and his face, I don't have to tell anyone here that Alfred Molina's a pretty good actor. But, but he's like, it felt like he got a direction of come off really nice, but be suspicious. Like, everyone needs to know that you're not being sincere, but you can't come off as insincere at any point. And he somehow
Until
nailed
nobody
that.
gets there, at least.
Like he did it like perfectly. Like his face, like when he's like trying to be like, jovial and welcoming, is haunting. Like it's terrifying, and the whole bit, and you don't know when it's gonna happen. When he's like, he pulls out, the wanted poster, all that, like your autograph, and just the whole bit. And you're like, you're just waiting for stuff to happen, and him, just like most deaths in this movie, it is such a treat to watch people get murdered in this film. And
Yes.
They do die. This is horribly beautiful murder. Yes.
Yeah, and Alfred Molina, that whole bit is it's great how he goes.
He gets the best like nobody Blake burn, I think, too.
Yeah.
When nobody's like, the image of Christ that you see is the image of my enemy.
Yeah. And I really like that bit too, where he offers nobody, instead of tobacco, he offers some beads or a blanket, and he's like, a blanket. And it's just, it's the response there. It's just like, oh, this movie, man, I can't wait till we get into the themes. I want to highlight, I'll straight up highlight William Blake. Johnny Depp fucking carries the movie.
Yeah.
Like, Gary Farmer obviously is the soul of the movie, but Johnny Depp is playing a character in a Western who is the main character, but is a passive character, right? It's such a fucking inversion of what we know about, like, the fucking Ford and Hughes and all that shit. Like, is it Hughes or Hawks? Howard Hughes, Howard Hawks. Which I always get those two confused. Which one is it? Hawks or Hughes? Hughes is the rich guy from like the fucking 20s and 30s, right? Okay, Howard Hawks.
Right?
Howard Hawks stuff. Yeah, and John Ford. Anyway, and so it's like an inversion of that. Like, he's playing that role, and he's playing it really freaking well, because when we get into the thematic material and what Brooks was kind of leading into, that interpretation of the film really helps kind of elevate his performance. But I also got to say, a mad dash to my man, Lance Hendrickson. Oh my God. This dude is so cold, is so brutal.
Like a damn religious icon.
Dude, that's what I was going to say. Like, and he just smashes his fucking head. Like, complete disregard to anything. The ultimate profane Western mythological villain, representing probably the darker side of Blake. But let's get into style and structure. I will say the cinematography was done by Robbie Mueller, a black and white movie mastermind. The cinematography in this movie is amazing. If you hear Jim Jarmusch talk about this film, he says he learned a lot from Robbie Mueller, not just about filmmaking and lighting, but about life, and apparently adored the man. He died not too long ago. The look of this film, fucking beautiful. They didn't have a shot list. They didn't have storyboards. If they went to the set and the plan was to do it in broad daylight, no rain, and it was raining, instead of canceling it, Robbie would be like, yo, maybe it's raining in this scene. He always encouraged Jim to look at it from a different perspective. He said that they would find a very scenic, beautiful Western shot, and Jim would be like, this is what I want. He goes, it looks beautiful, but we've seen it on a fucking postcard. And he'd go over here and be like, but look at that tree and that rock, and it's so alone and somber. And that's what this movie is going for. It's going for something darker, something different. And that is carried over with the cinematography, with the visuals, with the style, with the deliberate, slow ass pace. Jillian, you mentioned the opening of the film. That's how you start getting hypnotized into this fucking film. Like, that is an intentional choice through editing and structure to
The
basically,
blackouts.
And I get,
to
I got
hypnotize
it.
you in.
For like
Yeah.
the 2 or 3 times I started to see it, I was like, oh yeah, I see what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it kind of
It's
like
very-
almost lulls you in. It gets into your subconscious, because that's what this movie is. It doesn't have a strong necessarily Hollywood narrative or hero's journey. It's kind of an inversion of a lot of things. Like Brooks said, it's about diving into the underworld. So it is still that hero's journey, but in a different way. Style, structure, which I think is brilliant. 2-hour movie, perfectly paced and timed. Oh my God. Felt like no time at all. Brooks, what do you think about the whole bit?
Well, I mean, I looked at, this movie with more critical eye this time, trying to, notice that's, and, this movie is it is put together in a very interesting way, like it feels like the main character is just kind of being swept along in like a series of events that he has absolutely no control over. And all these characters will just like, appear and then disappear. And then some of them will come back for a little while, but like so many characters just come and go in this movie. And it's just like you're just following William Blake while like he just runs across all of this insanity. And he actually does very little. And like there's no like big boss for him at the end. He doesn't go back and like, get revenge against the father of the guy who killed Fell. He just he just ends up in the boat, and then, nobody in Cole, they have the shootout at the end, and that's it. It's a very, but I think it's not an ending that's just so stupid and doesn't make sense. But like, if you get what the movie's about, I think you'd be like, you could get that ending. But it is, I could see like somebody like, what kind of ending is that? Like, what even was this movie about? But I loved this movie on this watching, dude. I'm so glad I rewatched it.
Hell yeah, man. I'm so glad you fucking picked it. Jelani, what do you think about the style and structure of the film?
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys so far. I mean, it is paced very well. Johnny Depp is a passive hero, very much so. Everything happens to him, and it shows through the time of this movie as he goes along. Like, I really think that they're in purgatory. I think I think he's been dead this whole movie. Like, he's still the dead man, and it feels like that in every step of the film. And that's why I felt it was like so
Lost
surreal.
season 4, right? Or
Yeah.
season 6, right?
Season 6, yeah, where they're just dead the whole time, and we're just, yay, we're dead. And people around him don't really acknowledge him, and he goes all the way to Machine and finds out he doesn't have a job, and then he meets a woman, and the woman gets shot because
Dude, one of my favorite
he's always
things,
in the wrong place at the wrong time.
One of my favorite things is like when DVD chapters would have like titles, and I looked on here, and the second chapter is Welcome to Machine, and I just kept thinking of the fucking Pink Floyd song, and I was like, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, I don't know, just nobody guiding him. It's just like him being, it's like he's a spirit guide throughout this film, and you get it's beautifully shot. I'm the creative choice to make it black and white. I don't know where they came from, but it was a smart move for this type of film. I feel like it would be dull and drab, but it tells it's still vibrant. It's still telling me a wonderful story.
Yeah.
From beginning to end. And it's, oh God, I love all the shots. I love everything. I like Johnny Depp's face when he's putting the
lightning bolts.
The lightning bolts on his face. It's just shot so well.
Jim Jarmusch says that he wanted it to be in black and white because, first of all, it takes an element of storytelling away. He says color tells you a lot. And so he's taking that away, and he's trying to disconnect you from the modern day.
Yeah.
And make you know that it's in the past or something like that. And I think stylistically it's a great choice, especially with Mueller there on the cinematography.
I love that thing that opens up at the end, the Native American like village that they go to get the canoe. and that
It's a very
mouth
elaborate
opens.
opening, by
And
the
I'm
way.
like,
That was super
who makes
cool.
that? Yeah, I'm just like, really, that's awesome.
I was like, we need to make that for our action figures, bro. Like, we
Yeah.
open it up and it just falls
The
out.
Dead Man playset.
You too can you walk to your canoe of death? It's like, this is where you
Dead
go.
Man playset does not come with nobody or William Blake figures.
We need a canoe.
Yep. It's insane, but yeah, it's such a great film. I don't know how to explain like all the pieces of it, but it comes together so well, and it feels like he is already dead, and we're going through his journey.
Yeah.
And it tells it so well, like a dream state. It's like some kind of weird fugue state where you're just okay, it's just happening. And I'm like, the man's been shot in the arm, and no one like wants to wrap his arm up or make sure he's okay. And I'm like, none of that shit happens. It's just like, okay.
Remember, the 2 bullets may represent the 2 bullets that are part of that very integral scene with Thel and
Right.
Gabriel Byrne, right? Like, we'll get into all of that. But Brian, what do you think about the style and structure of the film?
Oh yeah, I loved it. Loved hearing what other what y'all had to say too. I noticed that like every shot or every scene like had a fade out and fade in. They weren't like, which I thought was like a little jarring at first, but then it was just kind of comforting actually towards the thing. And speaking of the pacing, like like Joe mentioned, like you watch a thing that starts off really well, then the third act falls apart. To me, the last part of the last 40 minutes of the movie was like just so solid. Like I was just like, I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off of it if I something the house started on fire. I was just like,
Yeah.
it was just so good looking, and all these things. And I was at that point you're just so invested in this world. So I love that part, because that's not always easy to pull off, and yeah, it's just yeah, I don't know, the the locations they were using. I mean, everything looked really good. Speaking to the kind of the dream state, like I was getting too much into like the geography of it, because like when they were going down the river, you see one of those totems on the side, and that's a Pacific Northwest Native American tribe thing. But most of the stuff was in the desert up to that point, and that's not a very desert area and everything like that. But watch the credits like I normally do, and there was a they mentioned the Mohawk tribe, and that's in I don't know, it looks like it's a couple hours west of Seattle. It's like basically right at the border there. Yeah. And they're strong canoeing culture and everything like that. And so like it looked like some of their houses were kind of like how that village was set up, but I don't know.
It's never established in the film necessarily to tell you, but apparently it's set in the 1870s, and the idea was that it was so far out there that we're truly in the last final frontier that's out there. And apparently the journey that William takes, even from Machine to the end of the film, is supposed to be a very long journey as well. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense then. Because like, I mean, the West, the eastern part of Washington and Oregon are deserts, and so once you get past that, but yeah, if you look on a map, I mean, it's about as far northwest as you can get actually, because it's like on the tip of that western part of Washington where that was. Yeah.
It's like literally exiting America. And I think this movie is very much about the spirit and the legacy of America, right?
Absolutely.
But we'll definitely get into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much, just intention and all this stuff. And like there's so much attention to detail too, because Jelena, you mentioned the lightning makeup, but as it progressed, you notice it was breaking down.
Yeah.
Like, so every time they were filming scenes, they would have to make sure they would just kind of break it down. And it's like, where are we? I mean, that's pretty good attention to detail,
and lightning is a motif in the film. Like lightning strikes at certain parts of the film, including when they're killing the fur traders, right? Mm-hmm. So like lightning is very important. We all know what lightning can represent, like inspiration, communication, thought, leveling up, shit like that. Elevating on a spiritual higher plane, maybe. Who knows, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know. No.
We're getting a blowjob. We're
going to do a part 2.
We all think about lightning bolts when we get blowjobs, right, Brian?
Yep. Yeah, all of us.
All the time.
Yeah. Every time. Yeah. JP out.
What about you, Joe? What do you think about the style and structure of the film?
No, I love it. It's structured in a way where it came off like what was it? I love the term like acid western because that was another one that was thrown around
Yeah,
about
I like
this.
that.
But like,
Yeah.
That works.
I love that it's this weird sort of dark, trippy Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, where it's the character of William Blake sort of goes into this weird world he doesn't understand, and he's sort of being guided around, and just sort of like Alice in Wonderland, there's all these like vignettes of different characters and different interactions. I mean, running into the fur traders and all of that, it kind of even felt a little reminiscent of the Mad Hatter and like that scene, like running into those sort of people doing
Yeah,
their
exactly.
thing. And
I didn't even think about that.
know.
There's a big
Mhm.
Alice in Wonderland kind of metaphor or allegory or
Yeah.
comparison here.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that, a lot of that kind of stuff going on, but yeah, it never, like, it's so dark and sadistic, but there's still so much humor in it.
hmm
And I like how, through the editing or whatever, on top just how it's structured, it runs so smoothly. There's no scene that feels like, oh, this is the laugh break where we're all just supposed to have fun. There's always like a darkness to everything that's happening, but it all blends so well together. And despite the fact that they didn't have storyboards, they didn't do those sort of things. They did a lot of stuff on the fly. You would think so much of this was meticulous because of how well it all threads together.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. The movie has this sense of darkness and surrealness that really is just so well realized in the film when it's put together, and it blows me away. I hear comparisons since I've been looking into it to Cormac McCarthy's work, in particular Blood Meridian, which is like my favorite Cormac McCarthy book. Like, I fucking love Blood Meridian. And I see where they're going with that. Like, the humor is kind of darkly humorous. And even with the moments you laugh, you kind of like,
Ooh.
it makes you think
Yeah.
about something, And
Like the
it's not-
joke, the joke with where nobody's like, you've collected another piece of the white man's metal, and Blake's like, yeah, I seem to be a magnet for it.
yeah.
It's like it's a funny joke, but at the same time, this dude is dying here.
Yeah.
There's even a bit where I think it's funny when Cole kills the fucking kid, because I'm like, it's a humorous bit where he's like, fuck me, well, fuck you, right? Like, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, it's like such a jarring kind of thing. And there's a reference to a William Blake line where and one of the cool things is, so Jim Jarmusch was reading a lot of Native American literature, or trying to get into that mindset, because he really has a distaste for a lot of old school Westerns because of the way that the idea that the Western is like this mytholized fucking thing,
Yeah, they
in
sugarcoat a
American,
lot of stuff.
right? And but like he said, like the Native Americans are always portrayed as like the dinosaurs, like some kind of ancient mystical race that doesn't even exist anymore. And he's like, he hated that, and he really wanted to be authentic with it, right? And so he was reading all this stuff, and he said before he was writing the script, then he was in a break, he was about to start writing the script, he wanted to decompress from everything he read, and he was reading some William Blake, who he always liked, and he was amazed at what William Blake was saying and how it relates to the Native American wisdom at the, like in general. And that's why we got that kind of thrown in there, and a lot of metaphor and a lot of substance and subtext.
Like the line, the eagle never wasted so much time as when he learned from the crow.
Yeah.
That's a William Blake line, and it's like, it does sound like something that you would hear from like a Native American, wise
Yeah.
man.
He was saying that, and then like always expect poison from stagnant water.
Yes.
And that's a reference to that bit where he does the thing. So there's a joke within a joke, but at the same time, it's something that makes you think. So the script, I think, is one of the best fucking scripts of a Western I've ever. And I like Westerns. I love even the more problematic Westerns from back in the day. There's something I can glean out of that. But this is one of the best Westerns I've ever seen. And of course, I'm a big fan of No Country for Old Men, which I think is a great
Yeah.
modern day Western.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and Unforgiven, which
Oh yeah.
fucking Unforgiven. So I would put this up there, and I would put it up there with a book like Blood Meridian, which I think is the best Western story I have ever read. Music. Neil Young did this score. He wanted Neil Young to do the score. He got paired up with Neil Young. Neil goes, "Oh, I don't really know. Let me see the movie. Tell me about it. All that kind of stuff." And apparently it was very, like, it's not how you typically do it. Neil Young literally watched a movie, like a final cut of the movie before the final cut, but a rough cut of the movie. He just watched it and was playing electric guitar, and he just came up with it pretty much on the spot. He had a couple themes in mind, but for the most part, he came up with it on the spot. And Jim says he wanted Neil Young to do it because he loved the way that he played electric guitar solo. And most of the score is just Neil Young on an electric guitar. And he said there was something real and damaged about the way Neil Young comes across on that electric guitar. And that is something that comes across in this movie. I fucking love the score. I listened to it isolated as well, and it works. It's not something to put on to be happy times, but it's a really great mood setting. Just, it does represent that damaged part of human nature, which in a lot of film that I really respond to, it does represent through the music and through the story, the damaged part of us, because those are the parts that resonate. Our regrets, our guilt, our failures, our shortcomings, and how that relates into a story of moving us from despair to hope. Like, I love that kind of shit. That's very real. And when I say a movie's brutally real, it's talking about how damaged we all fucking are. And I love seeing that through the music, feeling it through the music of film. I love this fucking score. Might be my favorite Neil Young work, to be honest with you. Especially after that bullshit where he like pulled his music off Spotify. It was like, oh, go to Apple and buy my music because they're cool. But Brooks, what do you think about the music?
Pro Joe Rogan.
I like the music in this movie. It suits the atmosphere of the movie, but it's it is basically, it seems like just Neil Young just like playing his electric guitar, like it has a very kind of Live from Pink Floyd, Live from Pompeii feel, where it's just like where they're just jamming, and it feels like that's what he's doing, but he's like jamming to this movie, but it works, with those echoey guitars, like those guitar, like Neil Young has like the most echoey guitar, I think. It's just like and it works. It sets the mood for this movie really good, I think. Even though it seems very simplistic, because it's just like just drum, no drums, no bass, nothing, just Neil Young's electric guitar. But
well, anybody else
sometimes simplicity is the best thing.
Especially because anybody else does a Western and they're going to be like either thinking wah, 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 or you don't want that. And yeah, Bobby, Little Big Man is one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite Dustin Hoffman films. I fucking love that movie.
I like Tootsie.
That's an interesting fucking journey there. What do you think about the music in this film, Jelani?
Yeah, I'll give it two things. It's jarring and it's haunting at the same time. Like when you go into certain things and certain shots, it's like he amps up the music when it needs to be. Oh God, yeah, it's so much just wow, and it comes in like in weird spots. They're like, oh God, yeah, he's playing music there, and it just pops up. It's very jarring. So I'm just like, oh yeah, but it still fits everything that's happening. It's very disjointed. It's kind of just up and down for me, and I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's very it's there when it needs to be, but it's very just, oh God, it's playing again.
I love it. You ain't gonna karaoke it. It ain't Keep On Rocking in the Free World or nothing. You know what I'm saying? But
not at all.
It's an easy soundtrack to karaoke.
But it fits this movie. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Now you got to air guitar that shit, bro. I don't know if you guys noticed, but at our karaoke bar, our local karaoke bar that we like to go to called The Station, appropriately so, They have like a wooden guitar there, I guess, in case you want to like go that full on route.
Really, I don't know that.
Yeah, it's in the corner
Yes,
there.
Brooks. You
I
need to
thought
grab
about
it.
grabbing it when I like to bust out Eve 6, I thought about it, but whatever. Brian, what do you think about the music in this film, man?
Oh man, I agree with what everybody's saying, man. It's great for the film. I mean, it definitely works, and like I said, it's jarring at the right times. I mean, it's almost like hey, pay attention, sometimes. One thing I really liked about it, I've listened to Neil Young some, and I definitely respect him, his genius and stuff. But I've never listened to a bunch of it. But one thing is, you're talking about the echo and everything. It's just the tone of that guitar is just brilliant. I mean, just like I don't know, it was so clear, all the noises and everything like that he was making. It was just like I don't know. I thought it was a great choice, and I was glad you pointed out that he kind of wrote it as the movie was going, and that makes a lot more sense because it's not like your typical score with planned themes that kind of do all these the typical things. Like it was definitely an atypical soundtrack.
Yeah, he had a couple ideas, but he literally was just fucking like smoking a joint and playing a guitar while watching the fucking movie, man.
That sounds.
Some of it was imagine him just like toking up.
Yeah.
It's good, and we were talking about how like the scenes kind of fade in and out from one another. The music kind of sometimes rides over that, and that's another really cool kind of thing. What do you think about the music, Joe?
Oh God, I love it. I love how the score in this movie, you can't even really separate it from the visuals. Like it's just it all everything really blends so well together. And my favorite parts are probably that same riff every time someone gets shot, and it's always like delayed for a second.
And then you hear the horse right afterwards.
And it's like that, and then
That's crazy
the
horse.
person reacts to being shot. It's oh God, I just love that so much. I love all the deaths in this.
People get killed real nice in this movie. I swear.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And it's not like the build up to the death that you see. It's not like the final act of Day of the Dead where you're like, fuck yeah, all these people are dying. It's like they die, and it's like in a Coen Brothers kind of way almost, where it's like it's not glamorous, the deaths. You know what I'm saying?
But they're dead.
Except for the whole film is actually, I think, a glamorized version of a death in a way.
Yeah.
One could say. We did mention that Billy Bob Thornton was in there because he gets shot and he's like, "You shot me. That hurt something fierce or some burned something fierce."
Burn something fierce.
He sure does have some pretty hair, doesn't he?
It's such a weird.
Stop
bit,
touching
man.
his hair. Why touching his hair?
It's so weird, man. But the music's great. Let's talk about what the theme of the movie is. Brooks, what is this movie about to you? What is it actually trying to say? What does it say to you personally?
Well, I mean, aside from the whole journey to the afterlife thing, like to me, I think the movie itself is kind of like, like I mentioned before, it's stripping away, the sugar coating that we put on, Westerns, like what America would have been like back then. It wouldn't have been like, good guys and bad guys. It's just, it's just a bunch of really bad guys, mostly. Like, dude gets there, and this fucking robber baron dickhead is out here, like, living his libertarian dream, fucking treating his employees like shit, and fucking basically tells them to, fuck
Mr.
off.
Dickens' son
Points his fucking gun at him, and, like, leaves this dude stranded, like he doesn't have enough money to get back. And that's, I think that's part of, like, why I think it's a journey through the underworld, is because there's no way for him back. Like, all he can do is, move ahead with what little he's got, and so, like, what's he going to do with it? He's just going to buy himself a bottle. Yep. He's going to, meet the girl, and then, and Thel, by the way, is a Blake reference to the Book of Thel. I wanted everyone to know that. I noticed that because I'm smart.
Yes, you are, Brooks.
You briefly mentioned the afterworld thing. Some people see this as William Blake in purgatory, or on his way to the afterlife and things like that. And I think that's probably a true interpretation of what is actually going on, that he actually died. Some people posit the idea that Thel and the Gabriel Byrne character represent him catching his fiance in bed with another man and killing both of them.
That sounds
And
about
so
right.
that's the sin that he has to atone for in this film. He relives it in that instance. But you remember in the very beginning, when Crispin Glover comes up, he goes, "Do you have a wife?" He goes, "No, I was engaged, but she changed her mind." And the way he says that is with such a somber tone that almost goes beyond. Like, he mentions it's the death of his parents as to why he wants to escape from Cleveland, but the impression maybe be that that's not necessarily the case, right? There is an interpretation where he dies and he has the sin of realizing what he's done to his former lover and her lover, right? So there's an idea there that I think is pretty spot on, kind of, in a little bit. But it is obviously the story of a dead man, right? And the first clue is probably the fucking title, right, Brooks?
Yeah, I mean, it's made out of bones too.
Yeah.
The title is probably the least subtle thing about the movie.
Yeah, and it even opens with the quote, right? It's like something like, "It's not wise to travel with a dead man," or something like that.
Yeah, it's like bad luck to travel with a dead man, something
And
like that.
some even say that the men in black in the film represent the true the dark shadow nature of Blake that he's trying to understand, because they keep calling Blake black in the beginning of the film, and Gabriel Byrne's in black, and Cole's in black, and Cole kills nobody, and nobody kills Cole at the very, very end, when Blake finally has come to the realization of accepting this mystical journey into the afterlife, and that is represented through his answer about whether he has tobacco or not, because tobacco was a very sacred material to Native Americans. So there's that's more than just a joke to say I don't smoke. The way he responds to that question throughout the film is different, but the same, and there's nuance there, I think, is representing something. I want to spend the next 20 years studying this fucking film, to be honest with you. I cannot wait. I'm thinking about starting another YouTube channel that's just about unpacking this film every single
I was
fucking
say, are we going to do a part 2 or 3 or something?
I mean, we should, right? We should get into
back
it.
together next week.
Yeah.
Delaney, what's this movie saying to you? What's it about?
Wow. Well, I was going with the purgatory angle as well, but if I looked at this as this just happening, like this guy was just really, and just had horrible luck, and I see it as if this man had really horrible luck and he's not the brightest, he is going, he has decided in his life that he wants to make a fresh start. He wants to get out into the world. He wants to take this new job far away from where he was. I'm looking at it from the non-purgatory part. So I think of it this way. I think it's about a man who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time every single time. And he just could not catch a break. It's just a man that just could not gain footing. And a lot of people are like that. They just want one false step, one bad decision. If you're gonna get a letter from somebody, and I'm once again treating it like it's not purgatory. If you get a letter from somebody and they say they want you at a job, and you wait 2 months to get there, and it's like, and you get there, it's like you're 2 months too late.
I wouldn't trust any written paper signed by any company, especially a
I was to protest.
That's right. So
he even says in the beginning of that film, "Why have you come all the way out
all
here
the way out
to
here
hell? To hell."
He's
He's
like so out of
Karen, bro.
place. The sheepish
He
little
is.
dude in this like Wild West town.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. He's Karen, and
Or it could be a normal. Yeah, he has black smeared on his face.
yeah, because
from
he's
the
like he's the
cold,
one like
and he's
doing the
fireman.
cold, right? But
Yeah.
it also makes his eyes appear brighter than the rest of his face, almost as if he's got coins on his eyes.
Right.
Mm.
I get it.
Huh?
And every time Johnny Depp closes his eyes, he wakes up and there's a new set of people in front of him. There's always something different. It's not like the train stopped. The train didn't stop. It's just all of a sudden he wakes up, there's a woman and a child. He goes back to sleep, there's a bunch of poachers. And at the end it's all poachers. And they're all wanting to shoot the buffalo. And it's so surreal. And like I said, if you take
The
away
buffalo
that,
thing's kind of one of those things that that aren't in old westerns, but like as part of our history. as
Mhm.
a really shitty thing that
They kill
that,
millions of
white
them.
folks did back then for no good fucking reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid white man.
Stupid white man.
They kind of leave it out of most westerns though, because it makes
Well,
makes
because we have this mythologized, that's the wrong word, mythologized?
Apologize.
Yeah, mythologized version of the final frontier in
Right.
the Old West, right? When
we were
and
like
it's
trailblazing
War
pioneers.
days.
and this movie
Yeah.
is when we talk about neo westerns or revisionist westerns, it's kind of that's wrapped up into it, right? It's kind of putting a little bit more. That's something that Cormac McCarthy does in Blood Meridian, in particular, right? Brian, what about you? What's this movie saying to you?
Well, yeah. So, well, speaking of that, I think that maybe one reason why this movie wasn't that popular either was because it's a Western, but it's a scathing critique of, the white man in Westerns. I mean, there's really no kind of way around it. Like the Buffalo thing, nobody's pointing out. I mean, he's killing all the white men, and all these evil white men that are,
You're a white
they're
man who's
evil.
been returned to life to kill other white men, William Blake.
Dude, that's like the goddamn Native American dream, man, at that
Yeah.
time, man. That's like the fucking
Kill 'em.
RoboCop, man. That's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is
William Blake
95, right?
is
So-
Native American RoboCop.
Right. So so when you're talking about like neo westerns, I mean that kind of stuff has just started, in the past 20 years. So I mean, that would have been kind of a new thing for westerns there, and probably not well received by like a lot of my relatives are from Texas. They watch westerns. I guarantee they would hate this film.
Never forget the Alamo.
Absolutely hate this film. But another thing that kind of drives it home is the one poem that they quote kind of regular, where it's like every morn, every night.
Some are born to sweet delight.
Like, and then every night, every morn, that one, I went and looked that up. The poem's called Auguries of Innocence.
Yeah, he did
read
two
through
books,
it.
Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. And they're they're like opposites of each other, sort of.
Look
Yeah,
how smart
yeah,
Brooks
definitely.
is.
Yeah. See, I knows my Blake.
Yeah. They were saying this one was like published like 60 years after it was written in some kind of biography or something like that. But the whole thing is about how when men, like murder innocent animals, basically there's going to be retribution for that. That's kind of what I see William Blake's character doing. Is like all these people are, they're mean to animals, they're mean to other humans, and they're paying for it. Alfred Molina is a good case for that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he tries to get him to sign it, but he's really just trying to distract him long enough so he can capture him and get the money.
And it's tied into the
and he's-
facade of religion.
what I was going to say. I mean, he's supposed to be a missionary, and what does the missionary do too? He offers beads and blankets, right? There's all that stuff with the beads and purchase the land, and then you've got the blankets, which obviously wreaked all sorts of havoc on the Native American people. I mean, the disease and everything. So, which is, I mean, like, and a lot of talk's been made about the purgatory journey and things like that, and I mean, that's clearly in there, but that was on it. That was the biggest theme I took away from it. Really, was just a scathing critique of the settling of America.
Absolutely, man.
So.
What about you, Joe? What do you think the movie's saying?
All that stuff, I more or less agree with what everyone's been saying and the additional analysis around that. I would add that I think there's this element of the journey with William Blake and Nobody, that nobody initially helps him solely based on his name, really. And then it's Blake who has to, even though he's more of a passive protagonist, who has to learn and grow based on the events. And then nobody towards the end is helping him, not because of his name, but because of who he is. And I think there's something to be said about the story being about who you are gets you only so far, and then it's what you do that gets you the rest of the way, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. I think we've all hit the nail on the head. I'll add a little bit about facing death with grace and understanding on the purpose of life and the mistakes we made in life, right? So there's that. I would also say that I want to quote the Philosophers' Corporate Avenger real quick. 2,000 years ago, we were all tribal. Then came the missionaries and their fucking Bible. So, to me, this is a condemnation on the degradation and the slaughter of Native American culture in American
By the
society.
government.
Yeah, but like that's what it is. Like they talk about the buffalo in the beginning. And then when we go to the town, you see all this bit where you see all these cow and buffalo skulls. And then if you look when it ends the shot, it fades into human skulls. Right? So there's that. Jim Jarmusch was very deliberate of him to make sure to try to get Native American philosophy and culture in this film in the right way. The whole passage of one life to another, that all of that, it's a non-mythologized version of the mythical culture of Native Americans and how it relates to the afterlife, right? But it is that condemnation on what happened, that slaughter of culture. And the spirit guide nobody guides you through to the end, right? Nobody leads you to judgment, right? And that's an interesting kind of thing. By the way, when they said that this dude's name is He Who Talks Loud But Says Nothing, I was like, that is Rockin' Robbie to a fucking T. But I felt called out. But so even then, like, in the beginning, when nobody is explaining his journey to William Blake, it corresponds to William Blake's journey through this purgatorial phase of the afterlife, right? Because he mentions, for instance, that he goes across the water and he comes back and all this stuff. But he said when he comes back, he sees the decimation of the native lands. And they show the scene of him, of what he saw. It's the literally exact same shot that William Blake sees when he's going in the canoe to his final like journey out. He sees it's the exact same shot. So that's intentional. That's something Jim Jarmusch said in so many interviews I watched, that he didn't like Westerns because of the way that they treated the Native Americans and their culture. And I think that's one of the most important things to him in this movie, more so than the whole journey into the afterlife or what William Blake's going through, but how Native American culture, the philosophy, the guidance there, how we decimated it, not necessarily us, but obviously American settlers and shit, how it was decimated, and the sad fact of what we could have learned from that had we integrated those cultures. You know what I'm saying? And instead of like the way it actually went down. So I think that's a big element of it as well. So there you go. All right. It's time to rate the film. You out there in the chat, if you've seen Dead Man, out of 5 possible you digs, what do you give it? And we're going to kick it off with Brooks. This was your pick. Out of 5 you digs, what do you rate this film?
Yeah, I give it a 5. I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I still like this movie. And like I feel like I've got more out of it, you know. It feels like one of those movies, you know, the more you watch it, the more you can get out of it, you know. So yeah, like this is one, like I'm almost tempted to like watch it again after I get it back from you, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a good one.
Well, before you watch
I
this,
did good.
Before you watch, you did great. Before you watch this, I'm gonna let you borrow a movie called Riccio, the story of Ricky, which I just watched, and trust me, you're gonna fucking love that movie too. I'm gonna let Jelani borrow it as well.
Okay.
Holy shit, Bob sent it to me, bro. Y'all don't even know. I think we need a special
It's already
edition.
a good movie for
I think
Bob.
we're gonna do a special edition of Action Fest like we did for Shogun Assassin on Riccio. If you've never seen
Really?
Riccio, you gotta watch. Trust
Okay.
me. Dude's literally punching through fucking people's faces. It's great. Anyway, Jelani, what do you rate Dead Man?
You know what, Brooks? I'm gonna agree with you, man. I'm gonna give you a 5. You picked a good one, man. I wasn't expecting much from it because I didn't know anything about it, and I feel terrible about that. So, first of all, my apologies because I should have
Got
watched
you with a
this.
surprise.
Yep, this is a very surprising film. I mean, five you digs. clean story, clean cast. It makes you think. The music is, like I said, jarring and haunting, but it works well with what the rest of the movie is doing. It has curb appeal, man. It does what it's supposed to do. It tells you exactly what it is in the beginning, and it gives you that ride. And you want to ride in a film. You want the beginning, the middle, and the end to all make sense in some form or fashion to what your understanding of that is. So I really appreciate this film. If you're into art films, on top of that, this is a good one to cut up. I don't know, just to cut your jib on or whatnot.
Hell yeah, man.
I really enjoyed it. So I'll give it a 5.
All right. What about you, Brian?
It's 5 for me as well. I mean, there's nothing to complain about. I mean, I can't find anything really to nitpick on it or anything. I mean, I was wrapped. I guess I'm a little ashamed that I forgot about this movie. I mean, I don't know. I was.
Yeah, you should have told me and Joe about this fucking shit years ago.
Yeah. What the fuck?
You, Brian.
That's fine. I don't mind being a scapegoat for that. Yeah. I mean, I'll take all that blame. I'm good with that. I'm used to it. But yeah, it's.
Now I'd like 2 eggs over hard.
It never gets old.
He'll get older and he does it to you.
What were you saying, Brian? What were you saying, BJB?
It's BJB. Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, nothing to nitpick. I mean, I thought it was fantastic, and just all the people, nailed all their roles, and I watched it, finished it Saturday night. I just started it too late on Friday night, but I've been thinking about it ever since. That's not normal. I'm just sitting around like trying to do something else, and then I start thinking about it again. Not that doesn't happen with every movie. So yeah, I mean, the movie, as you can tell, I tend to forget some things. So
yeah, well, the movie is good, but at the same time, it sticks to your ribs at night. It's like oatmeal, peanut butter, beans, and rice.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
Speaking of sticking to your ribs at night, Joe, what do you think? What do you think? What are we doing? Rating? What do you rate this film?
No, it's got to be a 5 for me too. It's weird when you just hear of a movie that's been out for a long time and you watch it and you genuinely have a thought of like, is that like one of my favorite movies I've seen? Is that because you get older, you see more movies, that just happens less and less, and so it was like a rare treat, especially like something that has been around for a while. It's one thing if the movie just came out and you're experiencing it with everyone else, but you're like, I can't believe I've gone this long and didn't figure out what was going to be like one of my favorite movies. So
right,
yeah, absolutely.
I felt the same way, bro. I was like, I got to redo my Western podcast now. Yeah. I was like, because nobody talked about Dead Man. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what's the fucking point? Why am I talking about Quick and the Dead when Dead Man exists? It doesn't make any fucking sense. But I'm right there with you. 5, you digs. Yep. This movie's fucking brilliant. It stuck with me like oatmeal, peanut butter, beans, and rice. I've been thinking about it since I watched it, just like Brian. And this week I watched a lot of crazy films. Riccio, fucking Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which was awesome. Fucking amazing film. I watched Black Dynamite. I watched fucking Pieces from 1982, the slasher film, and Dead Man.
Pieces.
Dead Man was like the only one of all of those films that is like up here. Really, Everything Everywhere is kind of up there, but this movie fucking blew me away. 5 you digs. So, second week of Crew's Choice, second week of all the way around the panel. 5 you digs. Wow, we're really knocking it out. So that's a PCP average of 5 you digs. No 69 needed. So, hell yeah. So Black Dynamite got 5 you digs. So of course Dead Man does. It's fucking great. So next week is Memorial Day, so we're actually not doing PCP Movie Night next week. We're taking a week off. But when we return, It's John Hammertime Holshoe's pick for Cruise Choice. We're talking about Grosse Point Blank. Dan Aykroyd, John Cusack, is that Minnie Driver. I have not seen this movie in years, but I remember really liking it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But 2 weeks from tonight, Grosse Point Blank. But join us on Saturday for Dylan's Horror Show for the New York Ripper. Lucio Fulci, Italian horror classic. Jelani, if you're available on Saturday night, you should join us for that.
I will see that. Yeah, I'll watch it in general.
Yeah, that's a fucking great movie. So I'm excited. It has been a great week for movies. What college you go to, Joe? Bobby wants to know real quick.
With Hofstra, or as the Japanese called it, Hahufstra Daigaku.
Right. Bobby gives Dead Man 5 you digs. Also 5 you digs to Riccio. Yeah, we're going to dive back deep into that. All right. So that concludes the movie review tonight. We're not going to do a back chat tonight, but Brooks, thank you so much for picking this movie. Final thoughts?
This Summer Born to Sweet Delight. Summer Born to Endless Night.
Did you say Afternoon Delight? Do you realize that is that about your cousin? What's going on? Jelani, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll do it again. I'm pro Johnny Depp, children. This is a good Johnny Depp movie from a great line to Johnny Depp.
Look at that hair.
With that beautiful hair. Politics. Yeah. Yeah, America. Yeah. Yeah, I like stuff.
Brian, thank you so much for being here. Final thoughts?
Well, I guess, my final thought is when I was watching the credits, there was a person whose role was hanging out guy. And the name was Nemo Labrizzi. And that was one thing I meant to look up before I got Labrizzi.
That's not the blowjob guy, hanging out guy?
No.
Because he was hanging out.
He is Man with Gun in Alley.
I would have named that guy different. I would have named him BJB.
And they would have got it right away.
Hell yeah. We got a new moniker for Brian. We got to thank Joe for that. Joe, thank you for being here. Final thoughts?
No problem. Thanks. This is absolutely fantastic. If people are listening to this, haven't seen this movie, please make it a point. You gotta check this out. Yeah, I love this kind of thing. There are so few movies like this. It's not even like, oh, I like the other thing that they did that's the same thing. It's like, no, it's very unique. So I really encourage you all to please check it out.
Hell yeah. Plus Iggy Pop's in this movie cracks me the fuck up. Like, what the fuck? That's such a weird bit, man. I love it. Thank you for being here Saturday night. New York Ripper on Dylan's Horror Show. 2 weeks from tonight, Grosse Point Blank. My final thought is watch this movie like Joe said, and do you know my poetry?